Have you ever wanted to communicate with the spirit world, your loved ones, or even your dear friends? Well, today my guest, Bonnie Vent, has been investigating a rather unique device called the psychophone, and she's here in the studio to tell us more about it today. So please join me with Bonnie on Let's Talk Paranormal next. Welcome to another Let's Talk Paranormal, and welcome to the studio, Bonnie.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you for coming along. Bonnie, how did you get involved with this whole business of the psychophone?
Well, actually, I was visiting the Villa Montezuma in San Diego, and I own San Diego Paranormal, so that's one of the places that I ordinarily hang out and investigate anyhow. Right. And I ran across a spirit named Shepard, who was the original owner of the house. And he actually walked the tour with me. As I completed the tour, I was looking in a bookcase and I saw this book entitled Psychophone Messages that was written by Shepard. His author name was Francis Grierson. So I first looked at that book and I said, you know what, there's an actual device that goes with that book. And the Historical Society folks were standing there and they said, you know, you're completely crazy. You know, we've never heard of any such thing ever. So Jesse was the one that first told me that this device existed.
Right.
And so that was a spirit channeling message. Well, because I'm also a researcher as well as working with the spirit world, I wanted to prove that this device actually existed in a very physical, meaningful way. So I started really with just periodically looking in the search engines for psychophone messages, which was his book, because I wanted to get a copy of his book to see if that would give me more information.
Right.
Well, I never did wind up finding the book, but about 3 weeks later, up pops on the internet a picture of a psychophone device, and a collector is actually selling it, and it's still for sale as we sit here today.
For how much?
$4,995, and I don't know if there's 99 cents on there or not. But
well, that sounds like a good deal to me. I know that the viewers watching the show might be thinking, psychophone, is it something like a telephone? But it isn't. It's so old, isn't it? It's nothing like a telephone.
We think it was built in the early 1920s. And it's actually a cylinder phonograph, which is a very common device for the day. The thing that's interesting about the psychophone from a textbook point of view is it's described as being a device that was actually used to record subliminal messages that you would play back to yourself while you were sleeping. Right. And it's very much a concept that we're familiar with today, of self-help recording of a tape to play in the middle of the night. So it was exactly the same concept. It's just, you know, from the 1920s and the technology that they had then. Right. So it has wax cylinders that actually record, and a timing device, so that a little clock that you would set, a little alarm clock, so you could say when you wanted it to start playing in the middle of the night, and then it would shut itself off when it was done. Right.
Now, I believe we do have some pictures of this particular psychophone device. So we're going to pull up our first picture, and what we're actually looking at here, Bonnie, is the psychophone in the case. Right. Just sitting there. Just give us a little description of what we're seeing here inside the case.
It has there's actually two devices that exist. This one that you're seeing pictures of is the one that's actually for sale. The other psychophone was actually won at an auction in Ohio. And I've been in touch with those folks, and they've actually taken their psychophone completely apart.
Right. Is this one that's for sale, by the way, is it intact?
It is intact as you see the pictures. If you go to my website, you'll get some more detailed information. It isn't actually functioning. It's going to need some parts, which apparently are pretty readily available, in order to get the thing actually up and running.
Okay.
One of the things that's interesting about this particular device is it did make it into this textbook about cylinder phonographs, but there's no trademarks, no patents. There's only two known to exist. And so then begs the question of, well, who actually invented this device? And was it really used for subliminal self-help, or was it not?
Right.
Now, the people that own the device in Ohio, when they won it in an auction, there was actually an old letter that was in the case.
Right.
And when they opened it up, that's really what they saw, was this letter that someone had written, which appears to be the messages that they wanted to record to have play back to themselves.
Right.
That, you know, they're really good with people and they're very healthy and, you know, that self-help kind of thing. So there is evidence that it was used for that. But there again, if it was a mass-produced item, why are there only two and why are there no trademarks?
Right.
So that puts it back into the mystery side of things again. I exhausted everything that I could do research-wise, our physical realm. So I decided to go back to my original source, which was Jesse Shepard.
Right.
And I do channel information from Jesse periodically.
Right. Whilst we're just going to talk about Jesse Shepard, let's pull up the second picture, which is the psychophone that's actually assembled, so the viewers can get another look at that. Periodically, you're in contact with Jesse Shepard.
Right.
How often is that, Bonnie?
I think he would like to be in contact with me more. We tend to have our priorities. You know, we want to go do our grocery shopping, and then I'll get to you when I have a minute.
Right. Right.
Which, you know, they really hate it when we do that. But he has been somewhat of a mentor for me because he was a spiritualist. He did channel piano music.
Right.
And so he knows. It's a funny thing because he talks about, well, now that I'm on the other side, I'm on the other side of the coin, because when I was here where you are, I kept trying to communicate over to the other side.
Yes.
And now I'm on the other side, and I'm trying to communicate back and share information.
Right. So he does this telepathically with you?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
And it's channeled information. Don't tell Bill Gates, but I use my laptop and Microsoft Word.
We promise we won't tell
I'm sure
Bill
that's
Gates.
not a feature he intended.
Okay, and picture number 3 is actually a close-up of the mechanism of the psychophone. Let me see. So what kind of information does Jesse Shepard give to you, Bonnie?
Well, I went back to Jesse Shepard and I asked him about who the inventor was. Right. Because I think we all know that Thomas Edison was meticulous about having a patent on everything. And this looks so much like a device that he would have created. So, you know, speculation, and a lot of researchers saying the same thing. This certainly looks like an Edison invention, but no one can prove it. So I asked Jesse, because he's the one that told me about the psychophone to begin with, well, what was your role in the creation of this device, since you knew it existed and no one else did? And the way he explained it to me was he actually met Thomas Edison in London. They sat and had a conversation, because Edison, towards the end of his life, and this is documented, did have a very active interest in trying to communicate with the spirit world and creating a device that would do that.
And that's a known fact.
That's a known fact.
That's a known fact.
That, and historians would say he died before he was able to succeed with his invention.
Right.
Well, because there's no trademarks, patents, it would lead you to believe that these might be prototypes.
Right.
And so in talking with Jesse, he said that's absolutely what they were. And there was a nasty little side effect with the psychophone because it had to generate so much electricity to be able to do this communication that it actually can throw a person across the room.
Really?
Which is something you definitely would not want to mass produce because you'd have lawsuits involved.
Sure.
Now, the lady who owns the psychophone in Ohio, as soon as she brought it home, she started experiencing electrical disturbances in her house. Wow. Her satellite TV froze on one station. At the same time, her stereo turned on and her computer shut off, all at the exact same time.
Wow, wow. Let's just have another look at another picture, the cylinders with the needle, a close-up of that. How does the psychophone actually work then, Bonnie?
Best we can tell, it's really a forerunner of a tape recorder, which is pretty commonly known that if you're going to record voices from the spirit world with today's technology, that you're going to use a tape recorder. So this is a very similar thing where people do periodically they do pick up voices from the spirit world from tape recorders.
Right, right.
And the way you can tell is the frequency is lower on an EVP voice than it is on the human voice. So if you run it through some editing software that's used in recording studios, you can make that distinction on what the frequency level is.
Right.
So you can separate that out. So this really just seems to be the forerunner of that very same technology that we're using today.
Okay.
What's interesting is that there is a ghost research group, International Ghost Hunters Society, that is working on a brand new device to communicate with the spirit world, and they're calling it the TEC, Thomas Edison Communicator.
Interesting.
And so you have the old and the new.
Right.
And there seems, I'm getting goosebumps, there seems to be a need for us to know the history so that we can move forward effectively in what we're doing in the future.
Right.
And that's why this information is being brought out. And so that people are aware that talking to the spirit world is not something that we just thought about in 1960, because there was another psychophone that was built, I believe in Germany in the 60s by a man named Zeidel.
Oh, right, okay.
And so this is actually well ahead of that.
Well, we're going to look at the last picture that we have of the broken cylinders. So we'll take a look at that picture, and whilst we do, I have a quote here from Edison that Bonnie had given to me before the show, which Edison apparently wrote himself, that if our personality survives, then it is strictly logical or scientific to assume that it retains memory, intellect, other faculties and knowledge that we acquire on this earth. Therefore, if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected by our personality as it survives in the next life, such an instrument, when made available, ought to record something. So we have that quote there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also one of Edison's assistants, Dr. Miller Hutchinson, said, Edison and I are convinced that in the fields of psychic research will yet be discovered facts that will prove of greater significance to the thinking of the human race than all the inventions we have ever made in the field of electricity. That's interesting. Bonnie, we had a couple of email questions from our viewers that knew you were coming on the show today. We had an email question from Donna, who wanted to know if you had personally ever experienced any poltergeist activity.
Yes and no. To me, poltergeist activity is really caused by the living. And some people feel differently about that. As a matter of fact, I get questions on my website about that as well, and house hauntings and that sort of thing.
Right.
Poltergeist activity can be caused by someone who's just really stressed out. You have to remember that, when we talk about spirits, we're talking about an energy body. Well, we have that same energy body. It's just our physical body falls away when we pass.
Right.
And so human beings definitely have the ability to put out that kind of energy. And if you do have psychic ability And also, if you are in a very stressed state or very highly emotional state, you can cause things to move around. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from the other side.
Right. I think she asked that question because you actually founded the San Diego Paranormal Project. Which
research project.
Yeah, which
right?
goes in hunt of ghosts and things like that.
Actually, I consider myself to be a spirit advocate, because what I'm doing when I go into these houses is I try and communicate with the spirits that are there. I try and find out why they're there. There's always a reason, whatever it may be. Usually it's unfinished business of some sort. And in some cases, I've actually been able to assist that spirit on our side, which is when you get into multidimensional interaction. When ghost hunters go into a house, a typical ghost hunter, they'll take their equipment and they'll try and, you know, catch the ghost on the equipment. The problem is there's no communication happening there. And I call it something similar to the paparazzi of a celebrity. Yeah, you can go in there and you can take the person's picture. But if there's no communication, you're going to wind up with a very frustrated individual. Because usually if they're putting up a lot of noise and there's a lot of things moving around, they're really trying to get your attention. And it's not malicious and it's not evil. They're just trying to get you to take notice that they're there.
Right. Have you actually ever had any footage of ghosts? You've picked it up inside a house or something?
Yeah, there are pictures that I have on my website. People send me pictures all the time. Of energy vortexes, which is white light swirling through, orbs, which is spirit energy. You have to be careful with orbs because it can also be dust particles, and you know, if you're taking pictures outside in particular, it can be little drops of water and things like that. So you know, I try and blow the pictures up large to see if I can tell, because usually they have a color to them and they're very circular in shape. So yes, there is that kind of evidence. I also have some EVP that was done at the Villa Montezuma and has been authenticated by another Ghost Hunter Society. Ghost Hunters of Utah actually did the authentication on that EVP recording.
Right. How long has the research group been running now?
Actually, I started September 11th of 2001.
Right.
So that's September 11th is my anniversary, like it or not.
Wow. And when did you first discover you had the ability to pick up with spirit?
Actually, as a very small child, I knew I was different. People always came to me and asked my advice. Adults came to me. And you get the comment, you know, out of the mouths of babes. Because even back then, without really knowing, I was channeling information. Being a typical Sagittarian, it just goes from brain to mouth. I don't even think about it.
It just comes out.
And so sometimes in the course of conversation, my tone will change and it'll actually be an entity coming through to deliver a message to the person that I'm talking to.
Right, right. We have some very interesting footage right now that we're going to show the viewers of Bonnie, and she's at the Villa Montezuma, and she's actually giving you some information about Jesse Shepard. So let's take a look.
The Villa Montezuma was the home of musician, writer, and spiritualist Jesse Shepard. Now it is said that Jesse haunts the Villa Montezuma and even channels his messages through spiritualists like Bonnie Vent.
My first encounter with Jesse Shepard was I came here Labor Day weekend of 2000, and I noticed there was a light on in the cupola. I asked the tour guide what was the story with the light being on the cupola, and he said, well, that's an interesting thing because there shouldn't be a light on in the cupola, there's no electricity out there, the circuit breaker is off, and there's no light bulb in the socket.
Jesse Shepard built the Villa Montezuma in 1887 when San Diego was just beginning to grow. His talent and charisma gave him entrance to both the best parties and social gatherings.
Jesse has told me that he wants to work with me to bring more activity into the house. He would like to have music in his house again because he was a musician. He would like to have sessions in the house where people can come and the house was built to be conducive to channeling. So they like to have people come into the house and be able to talk to loved ones that have crossed. People ask me this question too. Well, you know, do you ask them what it's like over there on the other side? Well, absolutely, I've asked that question. The problem is, if you don't have the frame of reference, how do they explain it to you? You know, if you're a caveman living in a cave, how am I going to explain what television is? You have absolutely no frame of reference. Oh yeah, it's electrical energy and it runs through the air and you can't see it. They're going to look at you like you're a nut.
This fireplace was built with a secret passageway inside. It kind of reminds me of the Munster house. There were secret passages throughout the Munster house. When I was a kid, I used to go all over the place, but I'm a little bigger now. The conservatory was built as the energy source of the house and was designed to attract spirits.
There's actually antennas up on the house. They're disguised with gargoyles on them just as decoration, but they're really not decoration. They're there to draw energy in. And air pockets were specifically put into the house design to collect that energy. So there's a major air pocket room above where we are. That's about 5 feet in height, which that's where the energy is stored, and then it comes through from there.
The entertainment room was a favorite place for Jesse. He would play the piano amongst friends, channeling Beethoven on one hand and Mozart on the other. Jesse Shepard actually died at the piano. He stopped playing and his friends thought he was taking a bow. Well, he took a long bow, all right, right into the afterlife.
Wow, that's an incredible house, designed by Jesse Shepard, and the gargoyles are there to bring in energy.
The gargoyles and those metal plates that you saw on the roof, they feed right into the conservatory, which is an octagonal shape. And for those of us that can see the energy, you can see a column of white light that actually goes through there. There's stained glass in the house, and the glass has been preserved. And I've been told that it's because of that energy that's channeling in through there, it's actually preserving the inside of the house.
Oh, really? Wow. Bonnie, I just wanted to present another email question to you that we had from a Steve. And he said that, this is in relation to the psychophone, if spirit is around us, as many people claim, why would we need such a device to communicate with them anyway? Wouldn't they just try to find a way of getting through to us telepathically with everyone?
Actually, they do. I mean, a large percentage of people report that they've seen a loved one after they've crossed at the foot of their bed or wherever. We don't tend to believe it when we see it. And we chalk it up to, oh, it's just the grieving process and you really want that person to be there. And so the people on the other side have to keep trying to convince us, we're here, we're here, we're here, we're safe, we're fine, we're okay. And really, it's our own unwillingness to believe that prevents just the average person. But the average person does see things all the time. It's just, it doesn't seem quite yet to be acceptable to talk about.
Right.
But when I talk to people and say, you know, hey, have you had an experience? Almost everyone I've spoken to has had some experience, whether it be an angel intervention or a loved one that's crossed or an animal, a pet. They have all experienced.
So the other side definitely does exist.
Absolutely.
Spirit lives on. We're energy.
Absolutely.
So you can't destroy energy.
And our personality is retained also, and that's plus and minus. If you were, you know, a crusty old guy when you were alive and you cross over, you're still going to be a crusty old guy.
Right.
You may mellow out some because there is a life review process, and if you've been particularly difficult, you may have a change of heart. So the personality can change in that sense.
Right.
But really no more so than a living person that had gone through a crisis and then they become a different person after going through that event.
Mm-hmm. Right. Before we wind up the show today, Bonnie, is there anything that you would like to say to our viewers about the psychophone device? Because I know that you're still investigating this at the moment.
We are still investigating it. It's speculation as to who invented it. So it's open for other people to get involved with the mystery if they want to do that. The psychophone device is for sale. It would be nice if it were in the hands of someone who really wanted to get it up and running, so we could actually take a look and see exactly what it does.
Right. So what you could do, folks, is if you go onto my website, you will see all the information of Bonnie and her website with the Paranormal Research Group. And if you have any more email questions that you'd like to put forward to Bonnie about the psychophone and do your own investigation, then I'm sure that Bonnie would be happy to hear from you. So thank you for joining us this week on Let's Talk Paranormal. And as always, keep an open heart and an open mind. Until next time, bye-bye.